Today we're going to talk about how the habit of zoning out and being disconnected in a marriage is painful to the spouse. If you're feeling alone and invisible in your marriage, then this disconnected behavior is probably present. I think most of us have a desire to be seen and known, but oftentimes we have a hard time identifying what that missing piece is in our relationship. We might feel alone or unheard, but we're not quite sure why. We hear a lot about communication issues, but the real issue can go much deeper than that. Today, I want to get to the heart of the pain of feeling invisible. Let's do this together. For the best advice on divorce recovery, emotional abuse, and betrayal, be sure to hit like and subscribe so you can be notified every Sunday when I post a new video. If you'd like to work with me one-on-one, be sure to check out the link in the description for my one-on-one coaching. I'm Coach Ketra. I help women find empowerment during some of life's most challenging times. I have survived emotional abuse, betrayal, and a divorce after a 17-year marriage. I have been down this road and you don't have to walk it alone. First, I want to look at what I call reality bubbles. We all exist in our own bubble. This bubble includes our physical surroundings and our belief system and all the awareness of what's going on in our world at any given moment. When we get married, we have this unspoken expectation that their bubble will overlap with ours. This looks like the other person knowing what's going on in your world and being able to anticipate needs before you ask. So for example, if I'm doing the dishes and my husband is in the room, then if he was aware of what I was doing and a part of my world, he would jump in and help do the dishes or help maybe tidy up around what I'm doing so that he can be a part of lifting that burden from me and taking part in the same little world. This is very different than me doing the work and him zoning out laying on the couch. This can also look like me coming in with my arms full of grocery bags and him coming over to take some out of my hands or to help bring them in from the car and just jumping into my world where I'm at and helping with a need that's present. It might look like my husband automatically helping to put away the leftovers after I have cooked dinner without being asked. A lot of this has to do with the other person acknowledging what's going on around you and them and jumping in to be a part of it without being asked. It can also look like one person seeing that something needs to be done and just doing it. Awareness really means having the presence of mind to be aware of what you need and what the others around you need in any given moment. Being fully alert to what's going on around you and being a part of that unit. Second, I want to look at what a lack of awareness really looks like. Many of us think that we are very aware of the people around us and what's going on. But if we asked the people closest to us, we might get a very different answer. Someone who's not very aware might ask a question and then later come back and ask the exact same question again as if they had never asked it and they had never heard the answer in the first place. This is because they are zoned out in another place, even though it looks like they're engaged in a conversation. They may even get defensive when someone points out how zoned out they're being. It's sort of like they disassociate with the world around them and go somewhere completely different in their head or on their phone. They might be playing video games on their phone or hooked on social media, or they just can't look up and connect with the people around them. They're someplace else in their mind. Most of the time, people with these issues have been doing this their entire life. They have used this as a coping mechanism so that they don't have to deal with everything around them in a way that floods them. And so they just check out. This behavior is really common in people with ADD and ADHD because their brains are just racing all the time and they don't know how to focus in on another human being in a way that creates real connection and awareness. For the third point, we are going to talk about how to connect the bubbles. In a perfect world, our bubbles would overlap. When we come into a marriage and the expectation is that our bubbles will overlap and we find that that is not happening, it can feel really painful and lonely and isolating. You can be in the same room with your spouse and feel incredibly alone because they're not meeting your bids. You might be saying something to them and get no response whatsoever. The first step to remedying this situation is to have a calm, non-accusatory conversation with your spouse about how alone you're feeling and how painful this behavior is to you. Next, you may want to make a request that your spouse gets specific help for this issue, and that might include seeing someone to get diagnosed for possible ADHD and medication. It will likely take a lot of purposeful work to end this behavior. It's an old habit and an old coping mechanism, so getting to the root of why it's there and stopping it can take some time. Make sure when you are making this request that you are being very clear about what you need. Some men are afraid of connection and vulnerability, and creating the distance is a way for them to insulate themselves from having to be vulnerable with you. That can take some specific help as well, some specific therapy, EMDR, and possibly breaking some unknown addictions. Let me make it clear that it's not your job to fix them, but you are in a marriage that is supposed to have mutuality. So it is your job to know what you need and make those requests clearly, because if they can solve this issue, it's going to benefit your entire marriage union. You are not obligated to feel alone and isolated for the rest of your life just because your spouse is struggling in this area. We are all obligated to grow individually and in our marriages. This can be a starting point for your marriage to heal and get to a spectacular place of connection and vulnerability. Nobody is exempt from the need to grow. If one person is not growing, that in and of itself is a big problem. If you'd like some more information on addressing these issues, I believe that I have 2 videos that would be really helpful. First, flip the power dynamic and regain your power. This will help you to understand how to make a request and how to take a stand in your marriage. The second is called Household Agreement, Win the Battle. It is all about creating a contract to help the other person be more aware and physically present in your life and marriage. Of course, check out my website in the description if you are interested in one-on-one coaching or want any additional information. Be sure to comment below and let me know what was most helpful for you in this video. And until next time, curate a life by your own design.